Hello and welcome to Frankly Speaking, where we dive deep into regional headlines and speak with leading policymakers and business leaders. I am Katie Jensen. As many parts of the world observe the holy month of Ramadan, the relentless bombardment of Gaza persists, resulting in increased casualties among civilians, aid workers, women and children. On this episode of Frankly Speaking, we hear from Riyad Mansour, the permanent observer of the State of Palestine to the United Nations. We ask him about the prospects of Palestine's recognition as a state at the UN, if the organisation can prevent an Israeli invasion into Rafah and mitigate further loss of life, and his assessment of the international community's failure to safeguard the innocent lives of Palestinian children who bear the brunt of this deadly conflict. Mr. Mansour, thank you for joining us today on Frankly Speaking. Now, here we are, 150 days since the 7th of October. The death toll continues to rise. More than 30,000 Palestinians have been killed, mostly women, children and the elderly. And despite this growing humanitarian crisis, Israel has refused to comply with the international law or even calls of restraints by its own allies. Frankly speaking, as the Palestinian envoy to the UN, do you feel that the international community has let you down? Should the world be ashamed for allowing such an atrocity to continue?
Well, the international community should have called for an immediate ceasefire a long time ago, because every day we do not have a ceasefire in place. We have a large number, hundreds, sometimes thousands, Palestinians being killed and injured. The great majority of them are women and children. We crossed 30,000 in number, and if we have a moment of stopping the fighting, to dig, the bodies under the rubble, the number will be dramatically above and beyond 30,000 plus that we were able, to document so far. So therefore, the international community, particularly Security Council, should act immediately. And the last call was from the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Guterres, who called for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire during the month of Ramadan. And we believe that his call should be heeded. And as he also invoked his authority under Article 99 of the Charter of the UN to have a humanitarian ceasefire, supported him then, we support him now, support him in all of his calls, along with all humanitarian agencies of the United Nations, who are saying that what the people need in Gaza is to have immediate ceasefire. We are working relentlessly in the Security Council for that objective. We are grateful for the General Assembly that supported us in that regard when we went there twice, but the Security Council is still dragging its feet, mainly because one country that has a veto power, and it's not listening to the billions of people who are calling for a ceasefire now, and to almost 14 countries in the Security Council who are supporting this position. I hope we succeed soon, and I hope we succeed very soon.
Of course, we do see that it's the Israeli government who continue to blame Hamas for the deterioration of the situation to where it is today. We repeatedly hear the claim that Hamas uses civilians as human shields. They say Hamas has built tunnels under the hospitals and the schools. Surely, doesn't Hamas bear any responsibility for where we are today?
So the Israeli government can blame anyone they wish, but there is international humanitarian law and provisions of that law, regardless of any reasoning or narrative or spinning of whatever one want to say. The national humanitarian law put the responsibility on the attacking, army or government to protect the civilians, not to harm them under any condition or situation. They have to harm them, not to harm them. They have to protect them. They have to protect hospitals. They have to protect personnel who are working in the humanitarian field. These are the provisions of international humanitarian law that Israel and any invading or attacking country should abide by, and not to blame anyone else, but to blame themselves for violating the provisions of these humanitarian international.
Now, Mr. Netanyahu has come out many times and said his main aim is to arrange for the release of the hostages. So I have to ask, and I know you are the Palestinian envoy, not a spokesperson for Hamas, but there is an argument out there that if Hamas had agreed to lay down its weapons, release the hostages and surrender, that it would have been, that so many innocent lives would have been spared. What do you think?
You see, again, the Israelis can say whatever they want. My job is to, at the United Nations, which is the place that was created in the first place to save future generations from the sword. So when there is war, it is the duty of the United Nations to call for a immediate ceasefire, try to resolve it. So therefore, at the UN, I'm devoting all of my energy and the energy and the thinking of my entire team in order to accomplish that objective. We need to save lives. Every day the war is continuing. More Palestinian civilians are being killed, especially children and women. So it is the duty of the international community to abide by the principles and the reasons why we established the UN, reflected in the Charter of the UN, to stop the killing, to stop the fighting, and to try to find solutions to these conflict through peaceful.
And the civilian casualties are alarming. 2/3 of them, as we mentioned, are thought to be women and children. Meanwhile, a quarter of people in Gaza are in a famine, according to UN figures. Ceasefire talks have failed so far. So I'd be interested to ask you about the recent negotiation talks involving Qatar. We've heard Qatari officials blaming the Prime Minister Netanyahu. On the other side, the US and Israeli officials have blamed Hamas for not being willing to release civilian women and children or even confirm their names or numbers. So how much can you tell us about this and who is to blame?
You don't have to listen to all the countries that you indicate. It's not an issue trying to blame one party or the other. Listen to the reports of international organizations, bodies of the United Nations, in which they are saying there is a famine situation in northern of Gaza, and they are crying day and night, allow humanitarian assistance to scale to enter the Gaza Strip. And they are also saying that we cannot distribute all this humanitarian assistance to all parts of the Gaza Strip unless we have a safe way of doing it, which means that we need a ceasefire. Those are the objective ones who are the specialists in dealing with saving lives, civilians in situations of war. Those are the ones who are saying objectively what needs to be done and what needs to be done, that this war has to stop, ceasefire has to stop, humanitarian assistance in massive amounts should reach all Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, and they're not being allowed to do so because of the Israeli occupying authorities who declared from the beginning there will not be water, there will not be food, there will not be fuel extended to the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip unless Hamas releases, the hostages. So therefore, they are using these illegal things to starve the population or as tool of war, and that is illegal and it is forbidden, and it is a form of genocide, atrocities, and wholesale killing of the civilian population to attain political objectives.
Well, as we know, this conflict did not just start on October the 7th. It's been going on for almost 80 years. The question of Palestinian statehood has been at the heart of Middle East tensions for decades. Now, there's been some interesting comments recently from international leaders, from the likes of UK Foreign Secretary David Cameron to the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Words, phrases like the recognition of a Palestinian state and a pathway to a Palestinian state really seem to be on the lips of many top Western diplomats these days. So, frankly speaking, do these kinds of statements make you feel that Palestine is closer now to having full state membership status at the UN than in the months and years before October 7?
I believe these statements, yes, do put us on the course of getting closer and closer to the objective of having a recommendation from the Security Council to the General Assembly to admit the State of Palestine for membership. Of course, we've been working for some time. We received endorsement for this idea by the summit, Arab Summit, OIC Summit, the combined one in Riyadh recently, and also the summit of NAM, Kampala, Uganda, also recently, in which all these summits are saying that the State of Palestine should be admitted membership at the United Nations. As to the timing when the Israeli side pushed the envelope in that direction, when about 2 weeks ago, the Israeli Knesset voted by 99 members out of 120 to deny statehood for the Palestinian people. So they are dictating that the timing is now, and we should proceed as soon as possible through the Security Council for that, and we will.
Now, Lord Cameron has said that the leaders of Hamas would need to leave Gaza because you cannot have a two-state solution with Gaza still controlled by the people responsible for October the 7th. Do you think that is likely to happen? If it does, who will rule Gaza? Could it be the Palestinian Authority?
Well, first of all, it is not up to anyone to put conditions on our natural and legal right to exercise self-determination, including our right to have our independent state. These are innate rights for the Palestinian peoples under condition. UK or anybody else, they cannot have experiences certain ways and impose on the Palestinian people different, conditions. For example, when Israel declared its independence in 1948, they did not negotiate that with anyone, nor they asked for permission from anyone. The Palestinian people will not be the exception to the rule. They will behave in such a way that it is innate right for them to exercise self-determination, including statehood and the independence of our state, without conditions, without negotiations, without permit from anyone. When the 13 colonies in 1776 at the United States of America decided to become independent and to sever their relationship with England, they did not negotiate that issue with England or ask permission from England. We are exactly like them. This is only the exclusive domain for the Palestinian people to exercise it. Do not accept permission from anyone or permission from anyone.
Well, a formal recognition could be a game changer for Palestine if we do see the support from the US, the UK and France, but there's obviously still a lot of questions that remain. Now, recently we saw the resignation of the Palestinian government, lots of uncertainty about who will lead the Palestinian people in the future. I have to ask, are you a potential candidate?
Well, you see, I am not involved in all these things. Our president accepted the resignation of the government of Dr. Mohammed Shtayyeh and the cabinet. And I believe that soon he will announce the name of the Prime Minister designate, who will be aging formation of the incoming government. and I am sure that that government will appear before the president to be sworn in as the incoming government. Of course, that government has a monumental task before them, deal with all of the complications of this war imposed on the Palestinians, suffering of the Palestinians, attend to the wound of our people in the Gaza Strip, and to begin the process of reconstruction and helping the people go to the areas where they were forced to be to leave from the north, from the central part, and so on and so forth, so that this incoming government will have, tremendous challenges to face, and I wish them the best of luck in dealing with these issues. Of course, this government is the government of the State of Palestine. Some of you might, characterize it also as the government of the Palestinian National Authority. It is the government of also President Mahmoud Abbas, because he is the one who will select Prime Minister designate and will also receive the future members of the cabinet who will undertake this formidable exercise after we put an end to this war and move into the day after the war. So this is what I can share with you at this moment.
Okay, well, tell me about the latest developments. I asked you earlier whether you would be a potential candidate. Now, you say you will remain at the UN. An announcement is expected in the coming days. So what can you tell us about the other potential candidates if you were saying you will not be one of them?
I said, I have a tall order before me at the United Nations to put an end to this war, to contribute to creating a condition where the Security Council adopt a resolution to that effect, and also to participate in the aftermath of ending the war by having all of the massive amount of humanitarian aid that should be provided to Gaza, and all mechanisms of UN on the ground that will be able to distribute all this aid to all corners of the Gaza Strip. And here I'm referring specifically to the heroes of UNRWA, who have an army, 13,000 employees of UNRWA, who are providing all the great things for our people in the Gaza Strip, to be able to carry that noble assignment task them through a mandate from the General Assembly, the mandate of UNRWA to carry all the services until there is a just political...
Sure, but let me press you on that. I want to ask about UNRWA a little bit later, but let's focus on the upcoming government. We've seen Palestine's foreign minister emphasising the need for a technocratic government that excludes Hamas. Prime Minister Shataya resigned last month, paving the way for a new rule in the West Bank, East Jerusalem, even Gaza too. Will this government have the means to engage with the international community to end the hostilities in Gaza and to be able to find a solution to the Palestinian cause? It's such a tall order. So do you expect this technocratic government to be able to achieve what the Palestinian Authority has failed to achieve since its formation?
Well, first of all, I hope that there will be a ceasefire in place before this new incoming government take place. Of course, after that, it will engage heavily with everything related to our people in the occupied Palestinian territory, including in the Gaza Strip. There are many, many things that are needed, and there should be a massive mobilization in order to provide for this government all the tools and the means and the resources to begin to attend to the catastrophic situation that was created by the Israeli aggression against our Gaza Strip. So there are many, many things that will be required from them. They will heavily engage the international community. I am sure that I will be heavily engaged in my place of work, which is at the United Nations, because the United Nations would have tremendous role to play in the process of the aftermath of this aggression and after we put an end to it. In addition to that, there are also many other things that we should be ready for, which I will be engaged, including the admission of the State of Palestine to membership, full membership, and the preparation for the convening of the International Peace Conference on the question of Palestine, the duration of the conference, who will call for it, the mechanisms, the role of the SG in this regard, the role of key government from the region and from the international community to be able to begin the process of the implementation of the global consensus on the two-state solution, meaning ending the occupation and seeing the reality of the two-state solution becoming a real thing on the ground, where the State of Palestine would enjoy freedom, independence, sovereignty on the border of the 4th of June, 1967, with East Jerusalem as our capital.
Well, a huge task ahead. Yes. I want to be able to ask you about the US position. We've seen some major changes, a huge shift in the Biden administration. Now at the start, Washington essentially said there were no red lines for Israel. Now they've been urging for greater caution in avoiding civilian casualties and dispatching a military operation in order to get aid into Gaza. Now, would you say this is as far as the US will go, or are you hoping for more?
Well, of course, we welcome humanitarian assistance from anyone, provided that it will not be at the expense of the UN, particularly UNRWA, and their role in executing and implementing the distribution of humanitarian assistance, reopening the hospitals, equipping the hospitals with all what they need, providing them with medicine, with fuel, with tremendous assistance and help from the WHO, which is another UN agency, so that under these conditions we welcome all humanitarian assistance to our people from anyone and through all the possible passage ways. And we believe the most effective passage ways to provide our people with what is needed as humanitarian assistance is to open all the crossings to the Gaza Strip and to remove all the obstacles of verifications from the process of sending hundreds, maybe thousands of truckloads of humanitarian assistance to our people in the Gaza.
But is it not ironic that on the one hand we have the US calling for restraint as they send aid to Gaza, while at the same time they're continuing to provide Israel with arms?
It is very ironic, If you want to save lives and to send humanitarian assistance, you should not send weapons and ammunition that the Israeli occupying forces use it to kill Palestinian civilian population. It's mind-boggling. It doesn't make sense. If truly the intention to save lives, then we should not send weapons to allow Israel to kill the Palestinians. And you should use everything possible in terms of political leverage and power to stop Israel from continuing this carnage against our people and to have ceasefire immediately and now.
Well, I know you recently expressed gratitude to the White House for reinstating UNRWA. Do you think that the battle over UNRWA is now over, that it will continue to be allowed to do its work despite the reported violations of some of its members that we heard about a few months ago?
The battle of UNRWA is not over because Israeli leaders, particularly Prime Minister Netanyahu, has been trying for many years to destroy UNRWA. Remember one time during the time of President Trump, he wanted the Congress to define who are the Palestine refugees, and he wants to restrict them to the few thousand still alive who were born before 19. And he repeated this exercise during the Trump administration that led to the suspension of funding to UNRWA during that time. So his intentions were clear from then to destroy UNRWA because it represents a key component of the rights of the Palestinian people, which is the component of the refugees and their right to return to their homes and properties in accordance with international law. So he wanted to destroy that. Now he exploits this opportunity regarding Gaza to try to accomplish that objective in the Gaza Strip because the heart of UNRWA is its operation in the Gaza Strip. Out of the 30,000 employees of UNRWA, 13,000 of them are in Gaza. The Prime Minister Netanyahu and his government, they want to depopulate Gaza through forced transfer of our people to the Sinai and maybe to other places. And then when Gaza is empty of its people, then that will be the destruction of UNRWA and therefore trying to remove the question of the refugee from the agenda of how to solve this issue. And they are making it clear that they don't want a two-state solution, no Palestinian state, nobody to return to Gaza, the people, Hamas, or the Palestinian National Authority. These are the plans of the Israeli government, and they are acting on it. It's our duty not to allow them to succeed in such evil, illegal plans against our people and against those who are helping us in order to put our life back as normal as possible and to attend to our wounds. And the UN is doing that. And
well, it's expected to take decades to restore some kind of normality to Gaza. UNRWA is expected to form a major part of that. But like other aid agencies in Gaza, it continues to remain a target there. On Wednesday this week, a number of its staff members were killed in an Israeli strike at a food distribution centre there. These kinds of cases are shocking. But let me ask you one final question, still staying on the US. Obviously, this is an election year in the States. There is a prospect of a Donald Trump second term. So I have to ask, does that concern you at all? How will you deal with that situation, considering that his last presidency saw what many critics described as an incredible undermining of the Palestinian Authority?
We will work and continue to work closely with the current Biden administration. And we sincerely hope that they take a decisive step for joining the rest of the members of the Security Council for an immediate ceasefire. And we sincerely also hope that they do not block our effort for admission to membership in the United Nations as a full member, and therefore to invest in peace and saving the two-state solution by having two member states, the State of Palestine and of course the State of Israel, being full members in the United Nations, and to engage in the political process through an international conference, implement the program of the two-state solution, which President Biden and his administration keep repeating every day that they are committed to the two-state solution. If they make such step in a practical way in that direction, then that means that the current administration is now trying to move in the direction of peace, and we will be ready and willing to work with them and others for the same objectives. Now, what will happen in the election, that is a decision for the American people to make, and we sincerely will work with those who will be working for peace and the attainment of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people, self-determination, statehood, and to the right of the refugees.
And of course, huge significance if we do see that full recognition of Palestine as a state at the UN. It would give it access to UN organisations like the IMF, the World Bank, much greater access to the ICC, the ICJ as well. And would really put Palestine on a much more equal footing with other states on the world stage, particularly when we're looking at these diplomatic negotiations with Israel, with other countries. But some big obstacles still remain. Mr. Mansour, thank you very much for joining us today on Frankly Speaking. We appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.